Maggot, a horror story told in serial form. Part 4. Spring break 1973. Early Saturday morning. Which was when I remembered they had a German shepherd. He came bounding towards me, not even wasting time to bark or growl, and I resigned myself to having my throat torn out or my balls torn off, when desperation turned my brain on, and I remembered the brute's name. "Hi, King. Good dog, King. Nice doggy, 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 doggy." He came up to me and started licking my hand. I thought that maybe I should hang around. If Ghoulie or the Buick man showed up, I could always sick King on them, which might be fun. And I wouldn't have minded seeing Lucy on a Friday night. I guess it's now Saturday morning. But I figured I'd better get while the going was good, so I gave King a pat and scurried into the nearby schoolyard. I had run across the field and reached the shadowy back corner when I became aware of the headlights of an approaching car. I threw myself onto the ground, praying it was dry, and watched in horror as the auto drove up the wide pedestrian sidewalk to the back of the school building. I recognized the 51 Buick and thought, if he drives across the field, I'm screwed. Luckily for me, it continued around to the other side of the school building, and I wasted no time in getting over the frost fence and into the backyard of the neighboring apartment building. I was totally unnerved. They had to be searching for me, had to be. For a while, I felt like a little kid alone and scared, lost in the dark. They were playing for keeps. I normally entered the building via the back service entrance, but the parking lot was dark and full of large cars and shadows, so I went in the side door instead. I took the stairs and checked the hallway first to make sure the coast was clear. Once inside the flat, something told me not to turn on the lights. I felt totally paranoid, and since I needed a smoke pretty bad, I actually stepped into the darkened bathroom, so no one, if anyone was watching the apartment, would see the flare of the match as I lit up. After I had my nicotine fix, I gingerly made my way through the diminutive kitchen and into the dining area, where, by keeping in the shadows, I could look out and down on Kerr Street. After a minute, the black Buick came slowly prowling up the street. Were they going slow because they knew I lived in the building? Or had they crawled up the entire street, checking out every lane and alley? And then a thought hit me. If thoughts can hit. This one slammed me like a load of bricks. Did Uncle Fester know where I lived? I bet he damn sure knew where the old doll lived. Did he connect me with her? Did he know I was her son? I walked back to the front door and put it on the chain after quietly locking it. I didn't dare turn on the lights for fear of drawing attention to the apartment. I took off my shoes and cap, draped the trench coat over one of the living room chairs, and went and lay down on the couch. In spite of the stress, I actually found it was difficult to keep my eyes open, and soon I had nodded off. And then someone was out in the hall. I could hear the gentle tread of their footsteps on the carpeting as they made their way down the passage, heading towards our front door. 1, 2, 3. And then they stopped, just outside the door. I had to resist the urge to get up and pad over to the door and peek through the peephole, but I was afraid of making some slight noise, even if I was in my stocking feet. But I was even more afraid of looking through and seeing Uncle Fester's fungoid face staring back at me. And then I heard another slight sound. Someone, ever so gently, ever so quietly, was trying the doorknob. I lay on the couch, unwilling to move, unwilling almost to breathe, focused on the stealthy fumbling at the latch. I tried not to make a sound, and I was afraid whoever was out there might hear the thundering of my telltale heart. And then another thought crossed my mind, one that almost made my heart stop beating. What if the prowler started knocking? Answer it? No way. I lay frozen for what seemed an eternity, but was probably only 2 or 3 minutes. But finally I heard the lurker slowly creeping down the hall, followed, in another minute or two, by the sound of the elevator door opening and closing. He or they were gone, but I still didn't dare move, didn't do anything, but relied on the protection of total silence. And then the door of the flat burst violently open. And then suddenly I was wide awake, icy skeletal fingers playing xylophone on my spine. It had all been a dream. For a long time I stared at the ceiling, but eventually my heartbeat returned to normal. It was still night, but the light outside had changed into the misty gray murk which heralded the arrival of morning. I listened intently for a full minute before daring to move, but there was nothing, not even the hiss of traffic on Kerr Street. Gingerly, I got to my feet and walked quietly over to the window, half expecting to see the 51 Buick pulled up to the curb and on surveillance. But there was nothing. As far as I could tell, the street, indeed the whole world, was deserted. I went to bed, dropping my clothes on the hardwood floor. But it was not a restful sleep, for I was troubled by dreams of strange, eldritch cities of monstrous cubes and shattered pinnacles, all covered in slime and muck and radiating a sense of both disgust and sheer terror. I was never any damn good at math, but the geometry seemed all wrong somehow, which added to the overall sense of dread. That and the fact that something was moving, something big, which made a slopping noise as it moved, something colossal, which was galumping, closer, 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 closer. I woke up, my fist pushed into my open mouth to stifle my scream. In addition to almost screaming, my body was streaming with cold sweat, my underpants so sopping that for a moment I thought I might have pissed myself. Although the curtains were drawn tight, I could tell it was light outside. Morning had broken. Home safe. Yeah, right. I went to the can, dropped my sodden gotchis on the floor, and toweled myself dry. I grabbed a new pair of BVDs, and after checking that my bed sheets weren't a riverbed, I was about to throw myself back down when I remembered last night. Could they still be out there? I didn't want to take a chance on pulling back the drapes and possibly revealing my whereabouts, so I crept out into the living room, returning to my old vantage point. Nothing below, just the usual early morning cars and trucks. I got the coffee perk going on the burner. I wanted a smoke, but not without a cup of joe. I was standing by the stove in a trance-like state, enjoying my morning scratch, when the phone rang. Bag. I went to snatch up the receiver and stopped dead. Bag? At 6:30 in the morning? No way. What if I picked up the phone and there was no one on the line? Just dead air. Or worse, Uncle Fester's sepulchral voice. I couldn't even remember ever having heard his voice, but I was sure it would sound creepy, funereal. Who else could possibly be calling? A wrong number? Maybe. Or maybe someone was trying to find out where I lived, or if I was home. I let my hand fall to my side. No way could I answer. I would let it ring until it stopped. If it was anyone normal, they'd call back. But the phone wouldn't stop ringing. 10, 20, 30 times it rang, over and over, a shrill tone echoing in the quiet apartment. I had to resist the urge to grab at the snap. "What?" or "Fuck off," into the receiver. But a sense of self-preservation held me back. I covered my ears with my hands and was on the point of exploding with rage when the coffee pot began to perk vigorously and distracted my attention, until the noise finally stopped. For a moment, I was as stunned by the dead silence as I had been by the clamor, but my relief was short-lived. The phone rang again. Trying to ignore the ringing, I poured myself a cup of tea, but my hand was shaking so badly I got as much on the countertop as I did in the cup. Eventually, it stopped, and clad only in my underwear, I slumped down at the dining room table. It was hard work to fire up a smoke, but eventually I lit one. But again, my hand was trembling so much, I scattered ashes everywhere. The phone rang once again and continued ringing for 2 or 3 minutes, but finally stopped. I lit a second smoke from the butt of my first and seriously contemplated getting washed and dressed, something I had never done willingly before 8 a.m. in my entire life. But when the horn remained silent for over 10 minutes, I thought about maybe going back to bed. No way I could sleep. Instead, I grabbed my paperback of Farewell, My Lovely by Raymond Chandler and tried to read. I fell asleep at the table. Time quickly passed. The phone rang, or detonated. I jumped up without thinking and practically pulled the receiver off the wall. "What?" I bellowed. "Where the hell were you?" "Bag? I've been trying to call you for hours. Don't you answer your phone?" I didn't dare. I thought it was Uncle Fester." I paused for breath. "They tried to follow me home." "I know." "What?" "I haven't been reading the old man's detective books for nothing. While they were following you, I was following them." "Well, I'll be damned." "You may well be. I figured they'd be after you, so after we split, I waited about 5 minutes, then headed up Kerr Street myself. Schlitzie and Chubb send their regards, by the way." "They saw you, eh?" "Yeah, they saw me, but nobody else did. I managed to work my way over to the low-rise across the street from the entrance to your apartment and took cover behind some guy's El Camino." I knew the vehicle. "I saw the Buick drive up and stop in the carport. A guy got out." "Uncle Fester?" "Nah, another guy, tall, dark. He waltzed right in like he had a key or something." I thought about my dream, about someone outside my door, and I shuddered. "I think somebody came to my door, but I don't know how." "Never mind that. I need you to come here, right now." "Where?" "I'm in the phone booth at Robinson and Trafalgar." "Yeah, I know it. Well, get your ass down here. Now." And he hung up. Bag. To be continued.